LAFC expansion draft special here on ESPN LA 710. Got a chance to catch up with the general manager of LAFC, John Thorrington, immediately after the expansion draft finished up late this morning here in Southern California. Now, remember, they had not yet officially announced or made the Laurent Simon deal for the number 4 and 5 picks. So we caught up with John immediately after the draft. I asked him, what are your thoughts on the process of the draft and how it's been completed for you guys?
Yeah, I feel very good about where we ended. It was I don't want to call it frantic. It was event-filled, not even 48 hours. Once the list got out to us Sunday afternoon, a lot of discussion, a lot of debate. It's actually a really valuable process for us as we get our technical staff together to hear people's input and decisions, and our ability to be nimble on the fly when a last-minute trade comes in, or an offer, or a guy becomes available. All these types of things that we need to evaluate on the fly that I felt we did a good job of managing what could have been very chaotic.
In this day and age of fantasy sports and the way people dig into rosters even deeper than maybe years past on all sports, even MLS, of course, you get that list. And without getting specific, do you start actually getting rid of guys first? Is that the way it goes, the process of elimination?
Yeah, I would say there are various stages of culling, essentially. And it's not necessarily that there weren't good players. There were very good players that we decided not to move on because they maybe just didn't fit, or we have a conversation with another player that affects our decision on a player who was available. So what we did is we took, obviously what we think would add most value to us, and we were really excited we were able to get the 5 guys we did.
Well, you mentioned one of the factors that could be a big factor is money, right? Frankly, you got to fit under a cap here for your first season, like every other team. Right around the $645,000 mark based on 2017 salaries as I look at it. Was that something you were shooting for, or was it just kind of a happy accident, or was there a number you had involved?
You're saying total
for the 5 players.
Yeah, no, look, we have a very good staff here. Our assistant GM, Will Kuntz, is better than anybody at the business in terms of being able to work quickly with.
He's a legend.
Yes, he's very good, so I work very closely with him. He was obviously intimately involved in the process, so that we were aware. Obviously part of the decision is what is the player bringing, and then is it worth it for whatever hit we are predicting, not just year 1, year 2, year 3. So all of that went into the hopper, part of the decision-making criteria, and that's where we ended up.
We're talking with John Thorrington, general manager of LAFC. John, one of the things that I see is you only have 5 selections. There's 300-plus names. Some of them probably surprised you for many reasons. Are there some more names on that list now that maybe you think, maybe we can go get them, even though they weren't part of our plan here?
Yeah,
they might be available.
Yeah, look, I don't think no teams wanted to lose some of these guys, and we get that. I've been a part of expansion myself as a player, and they can only protect 11, and now we're seeing teams with great depth. So their 12th, 13th, 14th player are guys they don't want to lose. Certainly because these guys were exposed does not mean that team wants to lose them. They just have some really tough decisions in the margins on who they keep. And yeah, we were surprised by a couple of the names that were left exposed. But by and large, you can predict with about 90% certainty. And if a name pops up, we obviously are well versed on the league where we don't then have to go do our homework. We're armed and ready to make a decision.
As I looked at these lists myself, I was 0 for 5, but we were in the ballpark in
terms
of salary cap. I wanted a guy who was actually picked last season. I thought Femi Hollinger-Jensen might be an interesting pick. I was looking at a little bit less money being spent. Ureña was an interesting pick for you. That was what took it to a different level because he's a legit, starting player. I was going for youth and everything. And you've got plenty of youth here.
I feel like we have
it's a good mix.
Very different assets in all 5.
I was going Armando Cooper. I thought Raheem Edwards, if I had 5 selections, I would probably have taken 4 Toronto FC players, if I'm being honest. Those are against the rules, of course. Fair. And Edwards would have certainly been one. That's no surprise there. Talk a little bit about him. I think a very intriguing pick for you here with Raheem Edwards.
Yeah, look, I think quite a few of these guys, they're victims of being on very good teams. I mean, look at the teams that we picked from. And it's no disservice to a young player if he's not unseating Justin Morrow. And, but for us, it's a tough position to get players there, young players, who have shown enough in his experience that we think he would be a good piece.
Yuka Raitala will fit in. It looks nicely. Of course, would be remiss to not talk about a gentleman who you've already gotten in Walker Zimmerman. Certainly a big name around MLS. That was a big surprise, like a positive surprise move around MLS. Talk a little bit about what he's going to add, kind of starting with him in the backfield, center back.
Yeah, you could just see with your body language what you see. He's a foundational piece. He's what we think will be a big piece, not just next year, but hopefully in the time to come as, a guy that we build on. Our central defenders are key for us, and the combination of Walker and another piece back there, I think, will be a solid foundation to build from.
Now, you mentioned just moments ago as the expansion draft was ending, it's now time for free agency. The clock just keeps rolling on towards March, as we've talked about on occasion. John, no rest for you, even though it's the holiday season. What's up next for you?
Yeah, I'll jump on the phone right now. We're going to talk free agents. Our technical staff, this is not a new book for us. We've already been turning the page on all of these types of concurrent discussions with expansion draft, with our foreign signings, with free agency, all of that. So now we dive in. I would say in terms of free agency, we're fortunate. We are a destination of choice from what I can gather thus far with the free agents, and then also with my experience to date on talking to players from around the world. So maybe there's the right move there as well, and that'll be, in very short order, maybe something else happening.
As we let you go here, the rumors are swirling, of course, with Diego Rossi. We've talked about it. Any update on that? Anything that can be kind of light shed on that?
All I would say is I think you guys have come to know that we, when we are ready to announce things, we announce them. So as soon as that or other news or whatever it is, if there's something to be said, we'll say it.
John, thanks very much for taking the time.
All right, Dave. Thank you.
John Thorrington, general manager of LAFC, immediately after. It's interesting to hear him talk about players who then get traded. And that's just the way the expansion draft works. Two guys had to go to get Laurent Simon back in. And, hey, I can't believe this is the fastest hour in the history of sports radio here. This LAFC expansion draft special has been so much fun. So many people to thank. Adam, appreciate all your work. Jorge earlier on the day as well. The great Mario Rees. Jesse making an appearance. Always fun to see him. Thanks so much to everybody who participated. Keep the conversation going on Twitter. My Twitter's blowing up. I'll try to answer as many questions even after the show at Talk Soccer. You can keep that going. Don't forget, Soccer Weekly coming up tomorrow on our normal Wednesday evening. Special time, 8 p.m. tomorrow here on ESPN LA 710. Once again, this has been the expansion draft special. LAFC building their organization piece by piece. They get a few players from the expansion draft. A few of them are sent to Montreal for Laurent Simon to help build that back line with Walker Zimmerman, and we'll see who they add coming up in the MLS Super Draft before the season begins. I'm Dave Denholm. Thanks so much for listening to the home of world football here in Southern California, ESPN LA 710.